You're listening to a Galactic Network podcast. For more, go to gncast.com.
We're the ElseNerds.
Hello and welcome to ElseNerds, a production of Galactic Network. I'm Gregor Sprague, and joining me is Corey Scott. And before we get started, I should let you know that you can find all these, all info on this show, including show notes and subscription links, by going to ElseNerds.com. And you can go to Galactic Network's whole page in general by going to gncast.com. And as a warning, on the ElseNerds, we will shoot our mouths off without thinking, which means we will both swear and spoil things. So this is your warning. I am sorry for what you are about to hear. Corey, how you doing, sir?
I'm good. I'm sorry that we're running a couple days late on the schedule this week. As usual, it is my fault. A lot of people don't necessarily know this. I had a party that I was helping to organize that took place over the weekend. I was working with a friend of mine, Ja Rule, and unfortunately things went a little south. I don't know exactly what happened. He called me up and he's like, hey man, people are really pissed off. They say they're hungry and everything. I'm like, Rule, because that's what I call him. I call him Rule. I tried calling him Ja and it sounded wonky. I said, Rule, man, you know what you do? No one's going to complain about a cheese sandwich. You give them a fucking cheese sandwich, they're going to be happy. And then he called me back like an hour later. He's like, yeah, cheese sandwiches are going over great. I think we're all set now. We're having problems with the sleeping arrangements. I don't know what to do exactly. We're expecting some kind of huts. Like, Rule, seriously. The government has you fucking covered. I got a hook line with some tents. I can set you up with some great tents. They've only been used once in a very specialized situation. You can grab those. You could probably watch the smell right off them. He's like, thanks, man. So good. And it just kind of went along. And I had a hard time getting back. There was a problem with flights. I mean, I got on one, and I just told everybody else to fuck right off. And it was a United flight, so because I was white, I was okay. And so I'm home, and that's all that really matters. So I think Rule's gonna be fine. I think Rule is gonna be just fine. How are you?
I'm doing great. And again, it's you do these little like things here, like of why we're late doing the show. When
I do have a life outside of this podcast, Gregor. I don't know what you expect from me.
Yeah. And I'm sitting here like, wait, it was my fault. Because like at first I'm like, oh well, I want like,
yeah, you're why Blink-182 didn't show up. I know. Fucking haven't played your birthday and shit.
But no, it's like I had work stuff, and then responsibilities of being a manager are fun. But yeah, so we postponed it, even though we probably really decided not to. But I also had a migraine. But anyways, whatever. We are moving on, and
we're here to bring you some news.
Yeah, we are going to bring you some news. And the first bit of news that we have is that Hulu orders Marvel's Runaways and Beau Willimon's the first two series. So they're going right, like, boom, full series orders. They're full season orders for the shows. And
which is a good sign. I mean,
yeah.
One of the things that we've obviously been looking at it more from the Marvel show, from Runaways. We're both fans of the comics. We're both fans of the writer, Brian K. Vaughan, who created the characters and everything. So we've been looking at it from that perspective. And Marvel has a couple different shows that are on their upcoming schedule. The other one being, and we recently saw the trailer for Cloak and Dagger, which is coming to Freeform, which looks pretty good. It looks different. It looks to have a different voice. It looks right for Freeform's audience. And it makes sense, I think, with where it's going to land. And it's still, while it's not exactly like what the comic was like, at least not in the trailer that they showed, it makes sense as to how they're utilizing it. And they're doing kind of a Romeo Juliet coming from different worlds sort of thing.
Yeah.
But you still want to make sure that Runaways is a property that I've waited for quite a while to come to film or screen. And it's always kind of a crapshoot as to whether or not we're going to get it. If it's going to hit a pilot and then just stall. So them ordering the full series, one, Hulu's trying to get more original content as it is, but two, that's good. That means that we'll at least get one season of this to get a feeling as to what can be done on the TV screens. Now, you didn't get a chance to see the leaked trailer that was not supposed to be released, and some guy at NBC is probably going to get fired.
Yeah, I did not. I saw this at work, and I'm like, oh, hey, we could talk about this on the show today. And I'm like, and I didn't think about anything about it until afterwards. So I didn't get to see it. The only thing I've seen it is on sciencefiction.com. Their header photo is from the upfronts, and it's Mr. Dude, I don't know his name, standing in front of the Marvel, so it looks like Runaways. And it has a picture of the cast, and this is where I'm going to do my first unnecessary griping. When we did the casting, or when we talked about the casting of the Runaways, and we hit both the kids and the parents, I had some problems. There was a few of them in there that I had known, being as I am younger than you guys. I know Greg Sulkin from Wizards of Waverly Place, and then he was on the show on MTV called Awkward. No, not Awkward. Faking It. And so I was like, okay, cool. I could see him being Chase, the character Chase, except for Chase was more nerdy, where Greg Sulkin is more the jock type character, and you talked me off of that. But looking at the picture that they have, it looks like three of these people look really close to an interpretation of the character. One looks like they are trying to redo, or they're trying to do almost an exact spitting image of a character. One is Greg Sulkin. One is a reworked Molly Hayes, probably because she will not be a mutant, but like an Inhuman or something like that.
And also because she's going to be a little bit older. I think we kind of figured that the Molly in the show is not going to be of the same age range as Molly Hayes was. Molly Hayes was significantly enough. I mean, at that age range, it feels significantly enough younger than the other characters. And on top of that, she acted very young. She was very impulsive, and that was part of who her character was. This character looks like she's more in line with the ages of the rest of the people in the group. Yeah.
So I will say this right now: the girls that are cast in here look like their characters. They're close enough to where I can believe. Okay, the actress who was on One Day at a Time,
who's playing Gert,
is playing Gert. She looks like Gert, and all that. The character playing Nico Minoru looks like, I could see her being Nico Minoru. I mean, and granted, this is going to sound incredibly stupid, but it works with both her and Caroline. You cast a blonde actress for Caroline. You cast an Asian actress for Nico Minoru. But
a lot of what these characters are is their attitudes, and you can't really get it from a picture. Although what you're saying about Gert is she looks like she has Gert's attitude. The way she's posed, the look on her face, it's not as like open and friendly as the rest of them. Gert is very sarcastic. She's got a little more tude. That's probably why she was the standout character for a lot of people.
Yeah, you just nailed it for me, because those three characters, those three actresses right there in those pictures, they look like they have that. They're showing that attitude of their characters in these pictures. Caroline was the bubbly, not bubbly, but she was always the lighthearted, to put in a dated term, like the Valley Girl in a lot of regards. But then you get to the character of I think it's Alex.
Yeah.
That looks like Photoshop. That does not look like the actor. It looks like they took it was like the concept art for him.
I have no idea what the actor looks like outside of this, but
Yeah.
he looks very much like Alex did on the front cover of the very first Runaways comic.
Yeah.
The afro might have been a little bit more wide than just tall, but it's a very well done representation of what you would expect to see Alex look like on the screen.
Yeah. But I mean, honestly, I am excited for this, and I do think on the Hulu standpoint, because we should point out right now that Runaways is from the creators of Gossip Girl, Josh Schwartz and Stephanie Savage. So there's pedigree there. This is Hulu. Honestly, this is Hulu stepping into following a Netflix tracks of we're going to get original stuff and it's going to be diverse. They're doing things to make me want to subscribe to them.
Yeah, I mean, this would be a hard one for me to skip. I've been avoiding signing up for Hulu. I've been avoiding signing up for Amazon Prime. I'm very happy with what I'm getting from Netflix. I'm very happy with what I'm getting from my movie channels on my Comcast subscriptions. But this would be that thing of like, if I'm ever going to try Hulu, it would be for this series. And that to me is kind of like, okay, yeah, I'm up for this. You might have captured the lightning on this one, guys, because this is a show that I have been begging to have happen. And like you said, you're talking about diversity. When Brian created this with his co-creator, the artist who's unfortunately I can't remember the name of right now. Was it Alfona?
Hold on.
You look it up. But when he created this, I don't know if it was specifically I'm going to make a multi. Yeah, I don't know if it was specifically he was going to make a multicultural cast, just to do that. But it felt very much like, but this is exactly what we need. This is what, without even it being said, because this is like 10 years ago, maybe even longer. When this happened, this is before everybody was like really chanting about you need to have more diversity in your comics. You need to have more diversity in your creators. People weren't yelling it from the rooftops as much then as they are now. And it's a good message. I'm not arguing the message. But this just did that. You know, this really brought that to the forefront at the very beginning. And it didn't feel like it was being done because someone was telling them to do it. It just felt like this is naturally how it was. There was no question of, oh, well, your lead character is black. Well, you're probably just trying to like appease people by having a black character's lead. Oh, and you've got an Asian girl, and you've got a girl who's not a thin rail, and you've got all these things, and it's like, yeah, but we've also got 3 white kids. It's fine.
Yeah.
But when you see it up on there, it's great because there is diversity. There is representation for kids who are going to watch this. The only thing I worry about is that if you know the storyline, not all these characters get to stick around for varying reasons. It's hard to lose your favorites. As a Game of Thrones watcher or a Walking Dead watcher, it's hard to lose your favorites. And Walking Dead seems to always, not necessarily, it's not like white people don't die too, but it seems like the diverse characters, they go a lot. And there's a lot of reaction for it. Yeah, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Oh, man. Thank God Trip is back. I was so happy about that. Spoilers for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So,
but
I'm excited for this.
Here's the other part. Yeah, so here's the other little. It is a nitpick. I know they're gonna fix it, but and it's the logo. I have right here I bought this at Target before I even worked there. But that's the logo on camera of the first of 4 Runaways. That
and it's a stylized kind of slanted, bold logo with arrows going in different directions to kind of give you the idea of separation of running away from what the letters are. And it's a very good comic book logo. And what Gregor's pointing out is that the logo on the screen in front of the picture of the characters is just a basic, it might as well be Times New Roman or Arial font, with the Marvel logo next to it in white under the Hulu original. So Hulu gets its logo, Marvel gets its logo, and Runaways just looks like the same text as the stuff that's around it and the surrounding stuff. I think that's part of it, is that what they're emphasizing here is more Marvel and more Hulu, and the combination of those two things, because Marvel is printing money at this point, and Hulu is trying to jump onto Marvel's dick when it comes to that. Like, oh, please, yes, hand us your coinage. And the Runaways part almost doesn't matter, I think, in this presentation. But it will matter in the long run, and what we see up on the screen maybe will be different. But I don't care. It's like when I see the logos and stuff for Marvel's Jessica Jones and Marvel's Iron Fist, I don't remember the logos being anything special on those either when they first show up. And it's up to the shows and the characters and the interaction. The first time we see Luke Cage punch a fucking wall open and shit, that's where it stands out. And so you didn't get to see the preview. I did. There wasn't a lot to it, but there were certain things that they showed, and they'll probably be like, other people probably downloaded it right away and will then dissect it and everything and show the different stuff. But we got to see some of the stuff with the parents. We got to see a discovery of super suits in a room somewhere. We got to see the kids kind of figuring out that something's going on. There was also an S-bomb dropped. I'm swearing. I just said fuck a second ago, or dick. Now I got them both covered. But they said shit, and it kind of like, it surprised me because the comics did not do that. And it was like the first time I saw the Transformers movie in the theater as a kid, as a teenager, actually. And Spike says shit, and I'm like, holy crap, Spike just said shit. Because it's a kid's cartoon. Now, this is not a kid's cartoon. This is a young adult series, and it's not on regular TV. And kids talk like that, but it still took me back for a second.
And here's the other part, and this is where I love, with B as one of our producers here. He pulls together. He tries to get the sources of the articles, and Deadline at the bottom says series will go into production later this year for a premiere on Hulu in 2018, and then it gets down to the who owns what shit. It gets to, and it's co-financed by Hulu, Channel 4 in the UK, and IMG. That middle one right there is that key to why you heard shit. I mean, yes, Hulu, but it could be, them advertising or not, they gearing this more towards the kids, not towards, the young adults, teenagers crowd. But that Channel 4, that's the company where we got Skins, where we got Peep Show, where there's, the naughty words, especially because England has the watershed. It's like, I believe 10 p.m. It's like 9 or 10 p.m. is where you could swear.
Yeah, and that's something to say too, is that I'm not deeply familiar with Skins or with what was the other one that you said?
Peep Show.
Peep Show. Yeah, I did not watch either of those, but was Skins the one that was about superheroes?
No, okay. Another one, Misfits, that came from there.
Misfits.
Skins was the one that brought us Young Beast and Dev Patel from the Newsroom, and was in Lion and the Best Exotic Marigold Hotel. It brought us a lot of these young actors and actresses, like way before they were Gilly from Game of Thrones also came from there.
And wasn't Ramsey in one of those shows too?
Ramsey was in Misfits, and he's now Maximus the Mad.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that Misfits is actually probably a really good example as to what you could do with a young cast as superpowered people, and something that should be coming over to America. We with our love of superheroes, especially right now, that's a show that should have been remade probably right then and said, hey, everybody who's looking at this, new season of Heroes and going, why the fuck did they bring Heroes back? No, you're right. We should do this instead. So maybe if that's the kind of level that they're going for, then that makes sense. I also want to just peace out to my homie Jack Rico from NBC, who I was joking about might get fired earlier. Jack, give him a cheese sandwich, and if that doesn't work, give him Pepsi. I think both of them are good plans to get people on your side.
Because we all know Pepsi. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. Fuck it. I've already committed. Because we all know Pepsi's will end all conflict.
Yep.
Just ask Kylie Jenner. So the next news story
who was at my party? Oh, Kylie was at my party.
The next news story
Too bad Caitlin wasn't, because she could have helped pitch a tent. Oh!
The next news story, I'm moving away from that as quickly as possible, is ABC's Gong Show reboot taps a very interesting host. Now, this is one I got to preface. The article I saw this from originally, fuck you guys, because I could have went on to watch the show without realizing that the host is Mike Myers.
And now people are going to say fuck you to us for revealing. Yeah. We refer you to our earlier trigger warnings about the show.
And we welcome all hate mail at ElseNerds.com.
Send nudes.
The reboot will have rotating celebrity judges, including Jack Black, Will Forte, and Zach Galifianakis, among several others.
Will Forte is actually one of the producers of the show. Arnett. And he's the one who was introducing. Oh, sorry, you're right. My mistake. I jumped from. I've unwilled myself. Yeah. Will Arnett is the producer of the show. Will Arnett is the one who introduced the character that Mike Myers is going to be playing as a actual comedian. He was talking about it. This is the thing. This is the kind of bummer of the internet, is that we're all like at a point now where we've got too much information, and then some of us do podcasts about it. But it would have been really fun to have this whole back and forth of like introducing this character, kind of like the Chris Gaines / Garth Brooks thing from the 90s, except hopefully nothing at all like that fucking piece of shit.
Yeah.
But to just say, yeah, you know, here's this comedian from England. We've had a good relationship for a long time. I decided to have him host the show. We were really excited to get him. And then as you're watching it, you kind of go, that guy kind of reminds me of Mike Myers, because he's doing the same Scottish accent that Mike Myers does in every fucking thing. I don't know if he's going to do a Scottish accent, but still, I just have to assume that it's not going to take long to figure out that Tommy Maitland is who he is. But it's the fun. It's just the fun of seeing this character be played with the idea of like what Martin Short did with Jiminy Glick, where for the longest time, there were people who honestly didn't really know that Jiminy Glick was a character, especially of a person that they found and knew so famously from other things. If you knew, then you knew, and it was like, wow, this is just funny. But if you didn't know, and that sense of discovery when you finally figured it out, or when it was finally revealed to you, was that much better.
Yeah. So here's the thing that I'm jokingly mad at the people for saying Mike Myers, because I look at that picture. The thing that pisses me off is they said, just look, you could see that that's Mike Myers. I'm like, no, that looks like Tommy Matlin. That's the character's name. And they say
to make it work, you would have to have seen Mike Myers in the last 20 years in anything. It seems like the only time we've ever seen him, he's in an ogre suit that's digitally manipulated. So it's like it's been a while since we've seen Myers.
But to be honest, though, this is a perfect thing because, or for Mike Myers, because I remember him on Inside the Actors Studio when that show used to air weekly as, you know, a TV series, not these specials, where Mike talked about how he creates his characters. And one of the things he does is he overdevelops the characters. He thinks about, you know, like if they were a country, like he talked about Wayne Campbell, and the flag for his country would be an AC/DC tour jacket with all the different patches and stuff on it, hanging from there. He gets that involved. So what better than to have him create a whole character? And that's what he did here with Tommy Matlin. He did it with Austin Powers before the Austin Powers movies came out. He created that band Ming T, and he went around London doing different shows and stuff, performing, and probably doing little bits in between. And that's how we got Austin Powers. Now here's the big difference. And you had said it before. We didn't have the internet back then, or it wasn't like it is now, where everyone's a journalist. I mean, hell, we're technically journalists right now covering this stuff. And I look at this and I'm like, okay, this is really cool. And it's going on, I think it's gonna be on Sunday nights on ABC.
Yeah, and their regular game show hook line time. What you just described is also probably why we've not seen a lot of stuff from Sacha Baron Cohen for a while, because when we first got Borat and we first got Bruno, and certainly before they were having the movies, but when he had a show on HBO, it was a surprise to a lot of people. They didn't recognize him. But once you get recognized, it's like Tom Green doing his shtick on MTV. The first season, like, nobody knew what to expect from the guy. He could go up to people and they didn't know who he was, so they didn't know how to react. But by season 2, it's like everybody knew him, and it got really boring because we all were prepared. It's like Howard Stern used to be able to go and just like be a lech for a long time, and then Private Parts came out, and people were like, "Oh, but you really love your wife," and so I know you, Howard. You're just doing an act. And then all of a sudden, he and his wife got divorced, and like, "Oh shit, Howard's trying to put his dick in me." So what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, Mike Myers is going to put his dick in you.
I, for one, welcome Mike Myers' dick, I guess.
And that's why it's called the Gong Show. Oh, wait, no, I read that wrong.
Yeah. But no, so it is going to be on, I believe, Sunday nights, with probably as a compliment to Match Game. And they got to get
Jamie Farr to be a guest judge at least once.
Yeah.
You got to get Klinger from Match, because he was always a staple on the original Gong Show.
Yeah. And it's one of those, like, honestly, probably the Gong Show Wikipedia is probably an interesting thing to look at, especially the section of other iterations, where they talked about the 3 revivals that happened, including this one, where there was one in 98 and 99 on Game Show Network called Extreme Gong, and then in 2008 on Comedy Central called The Gong Show with Dave Attell. Also, I think the last thing we ever saw Dave Attell do. And then this one, and I'm like, okay, yeah, it's one of those, if you're like me and you just occasionally find yourself going down the rabbit hole of Wikipedia, it's a mighty fine journey.
By the way, I think the last thing Dave Attell did was Dave's Old Porn on Showtime. I was a big fan of his Insomniac show.
Yeah, that's where I first seen him, was Insomniac.
Yeah, and the Gong Show for me was always, I was a big fan. I don't know why, because he wasn't really funny, but for some reason I thought it was great. I was a fan of the Unknown Comedian, which was a guy who would come out there with a bag over his head and tell really just dumb, sticky jokes. But I just thought he was the greatest when I was a kid. Yeah. And years later, when I was creating my first comic book characters, my villain was a French Canadian that had a bag over his head.
Oh, sorry. So the last story that we have is one that got talked about on other shows, but whatever, we're going to talk about it too. And it's DC is set to launch a digital service, a digital entertainment service that will feature Greg Berlanti's Titans and the animated series Young Justice Outsiders. So the third season of Young Justice. The interesting thing about this, besides those two, now this is, I believe this is going to take the premise that was Greg Berlanti originally, his Titans, was that originally the one that was going to be with TNT?
Yes, I believe that is the case.
Okay. So it's the one that got passed up over at TNT. They're bringing it here, and then Young Justice. Enough people clamored for it.
But we had assumed that it was going to be coming back to Netflix.
Yeah, everyone was going either Netflix or Cartoon Network. Cartoon Network. Yeah, where it originated. Cartoon Network, or not Cartoon Network, Netflix, because that's where everyone's been watching Young Justice seasons 1 and 2.
Now, Cartoon Network is also owned by Warner Brothers, so it would make sense that it could air there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, there's that, which they're a partner here with. But the interesting thing is that there's talks of doing more than just TV here. There's talks of doing something with the comic books. Yeah,
and I'm not sure what that means. So when we're talking about a subscription service, we've never seen a crossover of things other than Amazon Prime, because Amazon Prime gives you a lot of different services available through that subscription. And it started out as you get free 2-day shipping, and that was worth it, especially when it was $79. That made for a lot of people to just order more and more stuff through Amazon in general. And then it was like, oh, and we're going to give you access to our library of original programming and other shows, but not everything, which is, again, why I don't subscribe to Amazon Prime, because I think that's a bunch of bullshit to have. Yay, you get Amazon Prime, you get to watch all this stuff, except for the stuff that you have to pay for. I mean, you get to watch it, but you just pay us more for it. And then it was like, oh, and you can also get some Kindle books, but it's not Kindle Unlimited, because that's a separate thing, because we want to have more confusion. And there was, I don't even remember what else was supposed to be fucking coming around with Amazon Prime anymore. Amazon Music, but not exactly Amazon Music. There's so much stuff bundled into it. This
Twitch Prime is in there now.
Right. Yeah, and this is maybe going to be more straightforward than that. I hope so. But I don't know exactly what to make of it, because if it's $10 a month, $10 a month is what we expect to pay for streaming services these days. Not all of them, and some of them seems a little high, but we've grown accustomed to it with Hulu. We've grown accustomed to it with Netflix. If you don't pay Amazon Prime for the full year, I think it's $10 a month. If you're doing it monthly, that's kind of the roundabout way of where we've allowed ourselves to believe that this is worth it. HBO Go, Showtime Go, all those $10. But then you have to kind of consider how much programming is there. We're talking about 2 original shows, but then we're also talking about a lot of other shows that might be there that are stuff that we've already seen, like the Arrow, Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, Supergirl stuff that's on the CW, maybe Constantine, maybe some of the other stuff that they own. Preacher is a possibility, but Preacher's co-owned with AMC, so I don't know if that's really going to be where that lands. Are we going to get new stuff on top of this? It's hard to say what it's going to be. So to then say, well, to make up for the fact that we don't have a lot of streaming video content yet, what we're also going to do is include comics. And Marvel has a subscription service that you can do an all-you-can-eat thing, except it's stuff that's about a year back.
6
it's not
months.
the new stuff. 6 months back, which is still pretty good. Because half the time,
and Comixology also
comics are so late. Yeah, I kind of wanted to talk about that too, because Comixology has it, but Marvel just put some more stuff into the Kindle Unlimited, and then some other stuff into another Kindle service, I think, and the Comixology service, and they've all got different stuff, and that doesn't quite make a lot of sense to me, because it's like it's spreading out the Marvel stuff to a whole bunch of different places, but you have to chase around if you want to read one specific thing, well, which service am I going to get this story in? So that's confusing to the consumer. I just want something that I can get what I want to read in one place and not have to fight my way around. The Comixology thing would work for me much better if it included the same thing as DC does and Marvel does in the Comixology app, along with all the image stuff and everything else. And I would even say that it's worth it to pay more for it, because you consider what most people pay if you're a big comics fan, what you pay for comics every month, getting that seems like, okay, yeah, I'll spend a little bit more for how much there is to read there. But when you compare it to $10 a month for a service of how much you get to watch on some of these other services right now, but even then, so much stuff is being taken away from Netflix. So much stuff is going to be taken away from Amazon. HBO has just said that they're going to start taking stuff away from Amazon in the next year, because why not just get your HBO subscription from them instead?
Which makes sense. That part makes sense because of the fact that, I mean, I am looking at getting HBO on, with my Amazon as well. But it makes sense because they already have the shows on there. They just don't have the new stuff. And all that. So I think we are starting to see this fracture of the internet TV services and all that.
If only there was a system set up where I could get a bunch of these different shows and services and channels all in one place, and I didn't have to fight my way through a box with a bunch of different apps, and I had to jump all through. If I could just maybe, like, I don't know, change channels or something, and then, like, there's always programming on, and I can just kind of flip through and go and, like, oh, but here's TNT, and it's got its own little space on channel 237, and then here's Cartoon Network, and it's on 289, and oh my God, I've got all these different choices right here in just one lump subscription. I mean, it's expensive as shit, and I have to call back and renegotiate once every year, or they'll fuck me hard. But if only that was another option.
You speak blasphemy.
I do. Dominus Cabiscamus, AT&T.
But I mean, yeah. So you do hit the nail on the head there, pretty good. And also, I would say, I will tell you the ways that I have been told on how to sell a Comcast or to sell a service is to how you should get to where you can get the good deals.
You use your pretty mouth. Oh, I mean, yes, by pitching the service to people on your knees, sucking their dick.
Sort of. Without getting on the knees and sucking on the dick, but more of the. So you got, and I will use you as the example because I know you have a lovely wife named Erin and all that, and so it's like, okay, whose bill is it in? Whose name is in the bill right now, and is the other person an authorized user? If the answer is Erin and you're not an authorized user, cancel it in her name, put it in yours. Or the answer is you're the primary and she's not on there, cancel it in yours, put it in hers. Problem solved. You get introductory price every time, and you don't need to do anything.
I get the introductory price anytime I go and renegotiate. I've never had to fight to get the reintroductory price. And most what I miss is when they've done things like offering an iPad free or something like that. But that's usually, if you go and you talk to them, they're like, yeah, we know, just sign up and stay with us for a year. That's all we need. Plus, it's a pain in the ass. You got to return the equipment, then get the equipment again. And it's all fucked up. I just joke around because I'm very close to getting to the point where, because there's so many of these different services, because they are getting better, and because you're going to have to kind of chase the dragon anyways, is that it almost makes sense now to leave Comcast. I've got a very good local ISP that is doing much more to increase speeds in the area. They went from basic DSL, which was never going to work for me, to a fiber option. It looks like we're going to have gigabit speeds in most of Sonoma County coming up. That's SonicNet, who's a very good service and who I trust and who doesn't sell my fucking data to other companies and stuff.
Didn't Leo at the cottage have SonicNet?
He does currently, yes. He's got Sonic at the new Twit house. And he's getting, I want to say, like, even more than a gigabit down and up. I think he's like in the 10 gigabit range. I think that's part of why they chose where they went, because based off where the smart train is in our area, it was like local businesses and stuff like that could get it because it was being put in with the smart train. Be that as it may, it's the idea if I can get a high-speed internet that is equivalent to what I get at Comcast for even the same speed, then I'm not also paying for their TV service. And then I can pick and choose these other services. If I get like a basic thing that gives me some of the local channels like YouTube TV, or now Hulu has their TV streaming service that's going to be coming up. There's a bunch of other ones that have been introduced. That takes care of the live aspect, the local broadcast stuff that I want. A lot of them have DVR services in them. And then I can, for the next 2 months, I want to watch all the Netflix series that I need to catch up on. Stranger Things just came out with a new season, and I know that Sense8 was out just a couple months ago, so I want to watch those and whatever Marvel shows and stuff. Or maybe I just keep Netflix all the time because the $10 is really not that bad. And then on top of that, I subsidize with like, okay, Game of Thrones is playing their last episode this week. I'm going to sign up for HBO, be able to watch all the Game of Thrones for the season in a row, see whatever movies else I want to see right now, then flip from that to Showtime, flip from that to whatever. It's so much easier to do that now. Yeah, we'll get to Stars. It's so much easier to do that now than having to sign up for a long period of time and being stuck with something that you don't necessarily utilize much of. Like, I don't watch a lot of the movie channels for long periods of time until all of a sudden it's like I'm just driven to them. Like at the end of this month, Twin Peaks is starting up. I am going to be glued to Showtime waiting for my Twin Peaks fix. We're watching the second season right now to kind of like get Aaron caught up with it. And it's just nice to have that back and have that available through my cable box. But I've owned the DVDs for a long time. I own the Blu-rays. And you can watch them, I think, through Netflix still. It's very easy to get this stuff. But it's just walking away from cable is still hard for me because I was raised on cable TV. But I get now why so many people can and why cable companies are losing subscribers at record numbers. But is the DC thing going to pull me in? Is the DC thing going to pull me in enough with what they're offering? It's going to be a question of what the comics balance is with the TV stuff, how I'm going to be able to get to it. Is there going to be a Roku app available, or am I going to have to do this from my fucking tablet?
Yeah, here's what I think is going to be the biggest challenge on the comics front. DC, and I know DC can pull out, but DC right now has a deal with Hoopla, where a lot of their graphic novels go to Hoopla when they become available. It started with the Rebirth, and they're doing some of the back catalog stuff. They're hitting, they got like Flashpoint, Blackest Day, Darkest Night. I think they got all the crises.
So what you're saying is that DC is knee deep in the Hoopla.
Yeah,
and they built that city on rock and roll.
But the only problem is that with Hoopla, you're tied into your local library. Your local library has to have it, have the comic book section as one of the things that you can get on Hoopla. And then I believe there's also a limit of 10 issues per month. I've heard in some cases it's 15, but like my library says that, but
that wouldn't even cover one of your pull lists for Galactic Radio.
Hey, I only do 6. I only do 6 comics, 2 from each of the big 3. Occasionally, if there's one that interests me from another one, I'll throw that in there too, just for funsies. But I think it's gonna be the biggest one. I mean, I look at Marvel, and I think this is probably why Marvel isn't on Hoopla, which it seems like they're the only, them and Valiant are the only ones that aren't on. Maybe Dark Horse aren't on Hoopla, and I mean Archie Comics, a lot of the Boom Studios, they do the issues in that month, so it's not just the trades; it's the full, like it's Archie number 25, Archie, Jughead number 7, Betty and Veronica number 3, if that ever fucking comes out. And then on the Boom side, it's I think that Jonesy and like Goldie Vance, I've seen them go issues. I think Lumberjanes even might be one that does that as well. But it's one of those where I'm like, all right, where's this balance here? Like how is DC going to do this if they do throw in comic books in there? Because I'll throw it to you this way: if they do get all their stuff, all to where this is where you're going to be able to find everything that is made by DC online, and I'll give AMC Preacher, but everything else that they have their hands in is on here from a TV standpoint. I think this is a great marketing or a great opportunity if they do have the comics, and it is the backlog because they've got 70, 80 years of comic books to pull from.
They do, but something you have to keep in mind is that while there are massive comic readers who would love to read that entire backlog and have access to it. I mean, one, I don't think the DC has their entire backlog, but two is that a lot of people really read the month in, month out, much in the way that you watch General Hospital, or much in the way that you would watch Dallas or 90210. It's the serialized aspect of it that keeps pulling you back. It's that like every week I get this new story, and that's I think why these apps like the Marvel app hasn't taken off to a heavy degree is because it's 6 months back.
You're hitting a different spot than what I was going to hit. You watch The Flash. I know you don't, but you watch The Flash, and they do something that they pull. That they do something that they pulled from a comic. You get like how Amazon has X-Ray, or AMC with their shows, they have the story sync, where they'll tell you, like for example with Walking Dead, like they pulled this directly from the comic books in this issue and show you a panel of it. It does the same thing, but then it goes, do you want to read that?
How Amazon, when you're watching something on Amazon Prime and you have the ability to it'll give you more information, then you can click a link and it'll take you to the IMDb page or whatever. And no, that actually is actually quite intriguing if they have that as a part of something that's built into it. And if it's accessible, the problem is going to be if I'm wanting to watch these things on my TV and then I'm like, oh, well, there's this Flash story that I just watched in TV, and then it's going to have to open up on my phone or on my tablet or on my computer. That quick transfer, there's a lot of infrastructure and stuff that would probably go into that, but I like where your head's at.
Yeah, and Beats asking, won't that limit the TV show writers? No, they still tell the stories. It's just in comics where you see the little asterisk as seen in Runaways issue number 3 or whatever, where you get those moments where you get Flash, they bring in a character, like when they brought in Boomerang, Cat Boomerang. You go, first issue of Boomerang, you want to read it? Or if there's a storyline that they're loosely basing things on, it's like, boom, you want to read it?
And then you can turn into the ultimate comic nerd who says, what are they doing with all this dumb shit with Savitar on Flash? God damn it, they did it in the comics better. Just like all the rest of us. One of us! One of us!
One of us. One of us. But no, I'm curious to see what this is. I hate to say it would have to have more than Titans and Young Justice Outsiders to...
I mean, it's the same thing. It's the same Chasing the Dragon at that point. If it's like, okay, so here's my 10 episodes of Titans, and here's my half a season or whatever of Young Justice, and I go and I jump on there and I watch them all in one fell swoop, and then I'm like, well, I'm done with this for the month, and so I cancel my account and move on to the next best thing, which is fine. It's always going to be a crapshoot for these guys, is if they're going to be able to create enough content to keep you the next month. Or bring you back if the shows are compelling enough to have you come back. Remember when PlayStation was doing the Power show? And it was like all of a sudden big deal. It's like, oh, I've got to get on this PlayStation thing so I can watch Powers from Brian Michael Bendis. And then
then it came
really
out
gave
on
a shit.
Crackle. Yeah. No one gave a shit, and then it came out on Crackle a year later where you could watch it for free.
Yes. In fact, I think they were putting a $5 in the envelope saying, "Here, well, go watch yourself some powers. Do me something favors." I don't know. It's still, oh man, just so much content, and it's hard enough for me to watch the shit that's on my fucking DVR now.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. But I think that's a great spot to end the news. So I'm going to take it, and we will be right back. And we are back, and it is time for the ElseViews. This is the part of the show where we talk about the shows that we've watched over this past week. Where, boy howdy, I watched a doozy, and I think I'm gonna go first on this one, Corey, because then we could both talk about yours. Let's hold off on the stars thing in a second. But I'm gonna talk about a Amazon Prime original. Airs over in Channel 4 in the UK. It aired in February over there. And I started to watch it, but then time just sort of got in the way. And that show is Catastrophe. They just had their 3rd season, and this has very specific meaning for me. I watched this in one day. There's only 6 episodes in the season. This is the very last thing Carrie Fisher filmed ever, period, full stop. Days later after she wrapped up filming is when she got on the plane and had her heart attack and unfortunately passed. And she's so good in this show. But for those of you guys who do not know what Catastrophe is a UK comedy created by Sharon Horgan and Rob Delaney. That's it again, since it is a British show, each episode or each series or season, as they are called here, series in the UK, runs for 6 episodes. So they've done 18 episodes. The first season is essentially man meets woman. Man fucks woman over the course of 7 days while he's on a business trip in London. Man flies back to America. Woman calls him to let him know, hey, I'm pregnant. Man moves to London to be there for the baby and to be there for her because he does have some feelings for her. It's more like feeling him out. They end with
Sounds like it felt her out over that 7 days.
Yeah.
By the way, when you say he fucks a woman over 7 days, is that one time fucking?
No,
because that's a long goddamn time. So he's either really, really good at it, or he's really, really bad at it.
No, it's like it's a 6. I remember when they were first billing it or first like talking about it, they said it was over a 6-night stand. So it's like they met like over the course of 6 days, and they're just doing it like they're like 20 somethings or like they're teenagers just finding their genitals.
By the way, just want to say thanks for letting us monetize this, YouTube.
But it's so they fall in love and all this stuff. They get married. Season 2 comes out. There's a time jump, and they've had the first kid. They've had the second kid. They're going about their life. It is a comedy, but it relies more on the drama bits of this, and and going through this, you figure out all the things like about their family and how they really enjoy the times where they fuck up and stuff like that, because like you could see in there where Rob's mad at Sharon and then Sharon says something and makes him laugh and all that. It seems, for a dude who is single, I couldn't tell you this, but it seems like it's very realistic of couples. Like you could be mad at your wife at one point, but then she says something and you're like, actually that was really funny, and stuff like that.
You just described my entire marriage.
Exactly. So season 2 ends with him finding a receipt for the Plan B pill. And that's where it ends. And season 3 picks up here. Season 3, and I'm gonna let you know right now, if you're wanting to watch the Carrie Fisher episode, it is the last episode. It is episode 6, and good God, she was amazing in it. She plays Rob's mom in here, and Gary Fisher even makes appearances in the show. And Gary Fisher is her dog,
Yes.
and she's so good. In here, you find that Rob is he is an alcoholic. He has a problem with the alcohols, and he's trying to hide it in here. And he episode 5. So at episode 5, he goes because Sharon's dad had a stroke, and so she's over in Ireland with her family, trying, helping out around there and stuff. He gets there because he's wanting to confide in her and in Sharon. Hey, how I said I don't drink that often. Well, I've been drinking. I need help. She opens the door and is like, how did you know that my dad died? And so he's trying to, pull himself up to pull up his family, because he's the man, and he's got to be the rock in this situation, even though he's severely fucked up right now himself. He then confides in his mom, and it is by far one of my favorite lines that Carrie Fisher has said on the show, where she's like, are you fucking kidding me? If you fuck this up, I will fucking kill you. She didn't say fuck that many times, but I'm paraphrasing. But basically, it's like,
that sounds straight up Carrie Fisher to me.
Yeah. But she goes, if you fuck this up, I will kill you. And I'm like, all right. But no, it is honest to God a great TV show. I highly recommend it. Like I said, they're all half-hour episodes. So I mean, you're looking at what, 9 hours? Yeah, 9 hours of for a show. Actually, I think they're half hour. But anyways, you're not looking at that much for the whole show. And I saw this, and I saw the end. I saw the Carrie Fisher the episode with Carrie Fisher, and I'm like, done. Just there's nothing else I could say. But yeah, it's a great way for the show to end. It's looking back on it, it's a little poetic that Carrie Fisher's last thing that she filmed was, or had a scene where she was at a funeral and all that. But it was nice to see that was in the beginning of the episode and not, at the end. But yeah, so I mean, you could catch it on Amazon Prime right now, or if you're in the UK, it is available on Channel 4. Yeah. So Corey, you've been seeing some gods, haven't you?
Well, I usually do, because I check myself out in the mirror every day. What? No, I'm going to say I'm a big Neil Gaiman fan, but there are certainly more avid fans than I am. I've loved his work for a long time. I went on a long quest to get all of the Sandman comics in the hardcover collections, which was very difficult, including the Death hardcovers. I looked for a long time for the High Cost of Living, which was the first Death collection in the original hardcover. That took some doing. Seasons of Mist was the other one that I managed to find that was actually somebody's copy that they had gotten personally signed. So I feel really bad about it, but fuck you, I have your book now, and I'm happy. I've got a lot of Sandman and Neil memorabilia. When I thought we were going to record on Monday, I was wearing my Neil Gaiman shirt with him with a blazing sword, holding a book, and all this other cool shit. Because I'm a geek. I'm a bit of a geek. And while I'm not going to say that American Gods is my favorite of his novels, I might like Neverwhere a bit more. I really like the book. And I still haven't actually read the sequel, Nancy Boys, yet. But I have it, and it's one of those things that I kept planning to get to. And I'm certainly going to be picking it back up now. But Neil Gaiman has not had a lot of luck getting his properties to TV or film. They had Stardust several years ago with Charlie Cox, who's now Daredevil, and Claire Danes. And it's a very cute, sweet movie. I actually like it, but I can understand that it was a hard one to pitch to a regular movie-going audience. And so it didn't do great. We've struggled to see some of his other stuff hit either TV or films. There was the Sandman movie that's had several tries at getting made. The last one was Joseph Gordon-Levitt was working on it, and then it kind of fell apart again. I think David Goyer is involved with it again. I hope that kind of falls apart because fuck Goyer. But then there's American Gods. And American Gods is pretty damn cool in and of itself. Getting it to stars and having Brian Fuller be in charge of it, be the showrunner on it, I think we could not be luckier with what happened with the show. Brian Fuller was actually working on Daredevil, I believe. No, he was working on Star Trek.
Yeah, Star Trek Discovery. Around the same time.
And he left Star Trek Discovery because it was interfering with... He didn't have enough time to do both, and he decided to put himself into this instead of that. Thank you. Thank you, Star Trek Discovery, for being a giant pain in the ass. Or thank you, Stars, for making this more enticing. Thank you, Neil, for making this more enticing with a really good story. Whatever it took. I like Brian Fuller. We've talked before about him on Hannibal. We've seen him do several different things. I always go back to Pushing Daisies, which is a show that I really, really loved in the first season, and then the writer's strike, which we almost had again this last week. The writer's strike kind of fucked it for everybody. But I've got his Mockingbird Lane movie on my computer I still need to watch, which is based around the Munsters. Wonderfalls. Like, this is a guy that it's just like, shit, yes, I can't wait to see what he's going to do, because visually what he brings to the storytelling is so incredible. And on top of that, he knows how to tell a story. He knows how to utilize his characters and his actors really well. And so what I remember about American Gods is it was a slow starter for me when I was reading it. I didn't know exactly what was happening as I was going along. As Shadow was driving, we found out that his wife had just died. He had just been released from prison a little bit earlier than he was expected to be because his wife had died. That let him go. But it took a while for me to figure out what was happening. Having that knowledge going into this, I was just like enwrapped in the fact of like, I'm seeing these characters and I could not picture anyone better to play them than who they've chosen. So Ricky Whittle, who's playing Shadow Moon, and Ian McShane, who's playing Mr. Wednesday. Mr. Wednesday, like, fucking was made to be played by Ian McShane. Yeah. Like, it's one of those things you don't realize it until somebody says it. You go, holy shit. It's like the Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man moment. It's like, God damn it. That is just so fucking obvious. I don't know why I've missed it this whole time. But especially when you get to see it played out on the screen, it's just mind-blowingly good. And the show hit notes that I did not expect to see in the first episode, let alone some of them I didn't expect to see at all. If you reference the character Bilquis, played by Yetide Badaki, I'm probably not saying the name right. I feel bad about that if I'm not, but that's as close as I'm probably going to get today. My wife and I were watching this together, and my wife didn't really know a lot about it going in, or I don't even think she knew anything about it going in. And I'm like, I'm just going to put this on and see what happens. So in the first 5 minutes, we see a scene with Vikings, and Vikings show up on the shore of this land, and they don't give us a lot of information other than the fact they showed up there because they're there to conquer. It's like, that's what we do. We're Vikings. We go, we row ashore, we conquer. And as soon as they step on the land and they start to go and enter into the woods, one of the Vikings just gets shot with like 1,000 arrows. And I mean, just fit. It sounds like Matt on a weekend with a sock. Hi, Matt. You don't listen to my show. So, and then the Vikings like, did we just do something? Did you see Gary? Gary got shot a lot. Hey, Gary, you okay? Someone kick Gary. Gary ain't getting up. So then they like start to try it again, just a little more trepidatiously, and all the arrows just like hit right in front of their feet. They're like, yeah, I guess we're not going in there. And so after a little while, and they realize that they can't really conquer this land, that they were ill prepared for it, they try to get out of there. So they build a boat. They're like, yeah, we're gonna sail on out of this place. But they don't have any wind. And so they try to conjure their god. They try to conjure Odin to give them some wind. But they're so far away from home that they can't do it. So they figure, well, Odin's got one eye. Let's try to look a little more like Odin. So the leader is just basically stabbing each one of them in the eye, going along the line. They're all blinding themselves as a tribute to their god. Doesn't work. Doesn't have the desired effect. So then they're like, well, Odin's a god of war, and we don't have anybody else that we can fight that's not just going to shoot us like fucking poor Gary over there. You doing okay, Gary? Walk it off, man. So they just start killing each other. This small group of Vikings just like, well, we got to make it good, and we're going to get a god to pay attention to us. And they're just hacking themselves to shit, like cutting in half, bodies just flying everywhere. And my wife looked at me and she said, this is the greatest show I have ever seen. 5 minutes in, that's all she knows so far is the Vikings just like blood just pouring up, much in a Hannibal recipe. It was so good. And then it just like, it gets out of that whole thing into the regular story. And you think, all right, well, we're going to slow down now. And we do, to a certain degree. We're introduced to Shadow. He's in jail. We get a little bit of interaction between him and Laura, his wife. And then we find out that she dies. And then Shadow's released, and he has to go find his way home. And that's when we get to see his introduction to Mr. Wednesday. And again, Wednesday, the way he's introduced and the way he's acted by Ian McShane is so good and so compelling. And you're just kind of like, you're pulled in immediately with this character. Because he's kind of a con man, and he knows everything that's going on, and he's not really forthcoming with it. But he and Shadow have some shared traits, because Shadow has also done con stuff. Shadow also understands. He looks at him, he calls him out on his shit. And Wednesday's like, yeah, okay, cool. You know, we can talk, and I'm gonna get you to work for me. And Shadow's like, well, I'm not interested in working for you. I just got out of jail. I've got a job lined up. I'm going home to this. And Wednesday's like, well, no, you're not. You know, and then he kind of like lets it go. Shadow gets home and finds out that not only is his wife dead, but a lot of other shit has gone down. And things are pretty fucked up. And he doesn't have a lot that he can do at this point. And so he finally succumbs to Mr. Wednesday's offer of working for him. In the meantime, he also meets an Irishman named Mad Sweeney, played by Pablo Schreiber. And this was another one of those moments where my wife is like watching this, and the guy says something. He basically introduced himself, and he says that he's a leprechaun. And my wife looks at me and she goes, did he just say he's a fucking leprechaun? Now, he is a 7-foot-tall leprechaun, if anything. And we're like, okay, well, he's Irish, so he's just making a joke. He's not making a joke. He's not making a joke at all. And he shows you exactly by like throwing gold coins out of the air into a cup and just like taunting Shadow the whole time. He just wants to get fucked up and start some shit with this other guy. And it's just so great. I mean, everything about it. It's like, you know that he's egging Shadow on, and he wants to fight him, and he wants to fuck with him and everything. And you're just like, is Shadow going to succumb to this? And when he does, it's just like, great. This is awesome. This is so cool. And then the final scene was with Bilquis. And I'm not going to spoil that if for some reason you haven't seen it, or if you haven't heard about it because the internet is really blowing up over this thing. Yeah. The scene involves one of Bill Murray's brothers, which is just fantastic in and of itself, and a blind date and a shared dinner. Let's just go with that. Let's just go with like we were saying earlier. There's some eating going on. It is divine, and it's sort of like just barely starting. And there's so much more to come. And there's so much more that we already know is going to come in the actors that they've chosen for it. Because Crispin Glover is going to be in it. Cloris Leachman is going to be in it. Kristen Chenoweth, Gillian Anderson, Peter Stormare, who's going to be in the next episode, Orlando Jones. Like, there is such an amazing cast of people. And then Dane Cook. There's such an amazing cast of people, and Dane Cook are going to be in this. And it's one of those things that I feel like if you don't know anything else about it, when you see these people showing up, you kind of have to feel excited for it. You have to know that there's something special to this, to get that many great character actors involved. And when you see the story start to play out and you see who these character actors are actually playing and what they're going to do with these parts, it is a really magic thing. And I can't describe how much, I mean, Neil Gaiman is a person that makes me want to be a storyteller. Now, I already wanted to write before I ever found his stuff, but when I started reading his stuff is when I started to develop a different voice than what I had before, and things went deeper. And certainly some of my writing has happened not exactly like I'm trying to copy him, but there's that emulation. There's that I'm such a fan that your voice winds up shaping my voice. And so there's no way I can say anything about Neil Gaiman without pointing out, like, he's one of my heroes. He's one of my biggest influences. But I can't touch him when it comes to storytelling, and most people can't. But he's so comfortable to read. He's not one of those writers that it's like you have to work to get through his stuff. It's not like reading Shakespeare where you have to learn the language and you have to learn the meter and you have to kind of make all these things happen. You read Neil Gaiman stuff and it's so comfortable that it sort of misleads you, because you can't think that the story is going to be as deep as it is when it's just a simplistic to get through a page. By the time you do, you start to feel like, oh, holy shit, like I've just been shaken to my foundations by this story. And it didn't, like, it wasn't a violent shaking. It wasn't like, you know, when you're on a ride in a roller coaster and you're like getting pulled everywhere. It's a very smooth feeling. It's a very comfortable feeling. But the whole destination is so much further than what you expected to go to. So yeah, I really love this show. We're one episode in. It's on Stars. If you're not subscribed to Stars, this might be the reason to be. Or if they've got one of those to-go apps, then get on that, because
Stars
this is going to be the thing to watch right now. Up until Twin Peaks starts out, I can't think of anything else that's going to take my attention as much. And I'm talking like I'm in the middle of Fargo right now, and I'm loving Fargo. But this kind of like maybe push Fargo to, like, if I got 3 things on my DVR, Fargo's number 2.
Yeah. So I came to American Gods knowing that Neil Gaiman wrote a book called American Gods, not reading said book, but you know, being curious as to what the show is. So I was much like Aaron, where I knew nothing. I knew, you know, very few things about the book. I think I knew what we talked about when we covered that Brian Fuller was doing this for Stars. But yeah, and you hit a lot of the things that I hit on. One of the things I like is and this is coming from the guy who's watching Into the Badlands and watches The Walking Dead, and, you know, watches other you know, like the Netflix Marvel stuff, and they all have violence in there. With the Into the Badlands, it is a very stylized, you know, martial arts violent, to where when you see it, someone's head get cut, it's like the straight lines through. But the violence in here, it seems a ramped up version of real to me, because, like, for example, with you're talking about with the Vikings, which I saw that whole thing with the Vikings and I'm like, this is American Gods, right? Because that went on just long enough where I'm like, wait, what's going on? Wait, what is okay, I know nothing. And and then you get to the fight, and it's just like, all right, it looks like there's just a production assistant like below just throwing buckets of blood and stuff like that. I've only seen one other scene that has more blood like that, and that was the one scene in Cabin in the Woods when the monsters are all out and you just see buckets of blood being thrown at the window.
Yep.
And I'm like, all right, this looks really, really cool. And I watched the whole thing and I enjoyed this. It's so cool because you get introduced to um is it the god of technology? Who's the kid?
What is it? He's Technical Boy.
Okay. Is that his actual name, or is you can't?
That's what he's called in the credits for the show at this
Okay.
point in time. Now there's some room and stuff to find out more about him, but
Yeah. So you meet Technical Boy, and I'm like, wait, what? All right, this is really. Wait, is he in a VR headset, or is this real? Like, I start to get a little tripped out with this, but it looked so good. Everything looked so brilliant. Like, I don't. No, I'm not like I said, I have to catch up on Twin Peaks before I even jump into the Showtime revival. So for me, this is probably right up there. I think this is up at the top of my list of things that it's like, okay, I want to watch this. Like, all right, it's Sunday. Okay, boom, here we go. Like, let's watch this show. So I'm really enjoying it as well.
yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the waiting a week, because there's not a lot of shows that we're doing that with right now. Game of Thrones is one of the ones that we watch pretty much as soon as it hits on Sundays. We wind up watching it, but a lot of other stuff we kind of let it build up on the DVR a little bit, because it's hard to do that. Like, the expectation now, because of streaming services like Netflix and everything, is like I can just watch 10 episodes in a row if I want to, my day off or what. The slow build of this season happening, it's going to be different to do that with a new show, as opposed to something that we're already into. But I think that we both kind of were okay with it at this point.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, we're gonna save the last our else words for next week. Mainly because I'm getting hungry.
Yeah, we went
here.
along. We stretched longer than we planned to.
Yeah, we did a long show. So we're gonna wrap things up here right now, and you can contact us by leaving us a voicemail at then give the web address at 805-328-3966, or email us mail@elsenerds.com. You could find all of our subscription options and links over at gncast.com/subscribe. You could join us on our Facebook page over at Galactic Netcasts, facebook.com/Galactic Netcasts. Real quick before we go, because I just finished this and I just uploaded it for Galactic Radio, but this Saturday is Free Comic Book Day. Go to your local comic book shop, pick up some free comic books, enjoy those.
But also support your comic shop,
yes,
by maybe buying some other stuff that isn't free, and discovering some new stuff that maybe you don't know about that you'll want to go back for the next month. Become a regular there. Become friends with your comic book shop.
I am showing on the video the picks that I did on Wednesday. I will be picking up a few more on Saturday for Free Comic Book Day as well. Aside from the free comic books, just like, oh yeah, I want to buy this one and this one as well. But yeah, you can go back to the closer. You could follow the show on Twitter. We are at ElseNerds. The network is at Galactic Netcast. Our producers, Evan is at Mr_Fusion. Beat is at Beatmaster80. You can find me at that Gregor. And Corey, where can people find you?
You can find the comics that I help publish and basically blog for with my friend and superhero, Levi Krause, at don'taskcomics.com.
And the final thing to be said is this has been a Don't Tell Glenn production. We will see you guys next week.
or else. And one last thing, be well, George Perez. We hope you're healing up okay.
Yes. Be well, George Perez.